It's May 17th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the government's plan to increase medical school admission seats. A Seoul High Court on Thursday ruled in favor of the government's long push, which paves the way for the first quota hike in 27 years. But members of the medical community, including doctors who walked away from their posts in protest, are still showing no interest in returning to work. The Dow Jones Industrial Average Stock Index hit 40,000 for the first time on Thursday, with renewed investor hopes for a soft landing for the U.S. economy, following a favorable inflation report. The leaders of China and Russia showed off their bromance in Beijing, even issuing a joint statement on their opposition to what they labeled intimidation by the U.S. and its allies against North Korea. Washington warned Beijing that China can't keep both the West and Russia on its side. The first medical school admission quota hike in nearly 3 decades here in South Korea is likely to be pushed through, with the Seoul High Court rejecting an injunction filed by the medical circle. Our Choi Soo-hyung starts us off this morning.
The Seoul High Court on Thursday rejected an application submitted by medical students, exam candidates, professors and trainee doctors to halt the government's plan to expand the number of new medical students by 2,000 starting in 2025. Right after, the government said it respects the court's opinion, while trainee doctors announced that they will not return to their post regardless of the outcome. The court ruled that medical school professors, trainee doctors and exam candidates are not the parties involved in the lawsuit and dismissed their claims. Regarding medical students, while they are considered as a party, the court rejected their claims due to concerns of significant implications on public welfare. This court's decision is pivotal, as now government can enter the final stages of its medical reform plan. During the prolonged dispute, the medical community filed over 20 lawsuits to the court, but all applications were rejected in the first instance. On April 30th, the Seoul High Court requested specific evidence from the government regarding the increase of 2,000 to the med school quota within the appeal filed by the medical community. The medical community continued to argue that the meeting to discuss the quota was too brief, lasting just an hour, and was nothing more than a formal act to confirm the number brought by the government. Last week, the government submitted approximately 50 items of documented evidence. This included research reports which were used as the basis for the quota number itself, as well as meeting records from the Medical School Quota Allocation Committee. Ahead of the final decision, the Culture Ministry released the results of a public opinion poll showing that over 70% of the population supported an expansion of the medical school admission quota. As the government won the second trial, all eyes are on whether the medical community will appeal to set up a third trial. However, it seems that this is not scheduled to take place until at least mid-June, while the official admission guides for each university will be finalized by this month. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average surpassed the 40,000 mark during intraday trading for the first time on Thursday. It took less than 3.5 years for it to reach the milestone from the 30,000 mark. Our Lee Seung-ja has more.
Amid optimism over a possible rate cut in the near future due to positive inflation data released earlier in the week, the U.S. stock market responded well to start Thursday's trading session. Despite the trading day ending with losses throughout the major indexes, the Dow Jones Industrial Average reached the 40,000 mark for the first time ever during intraday trading. The Dow Jones ended the trading day at 39,869, down 0.1% from the previous trading day. The Dow surpassed the 10,000 mark for the first time in March 1993 and the 20,000 mark in January 2017. While it took 24 years to double its figure during that time, it only took 7 years to rise from the 20,000 level to the 40,000 level and less than 3.5 years to go from 30,000 to 40,000. The Wall Street Journal on Thursday evaluated the recent milestone, saying that when the U.S. Fed began raising interest rates about 2 years ago to cool down the overheating economy, the Dow Jones surpassing the 40,000 mark seemed like it would be difficult to achieve. However, it said companies increased jobs, people continued to spend, and inflation cooled. More than anything, the economic recession predicted by many economists did not come to fruition, giving investors hope that stock prices would continue to rise. It added that the rapid rise of large tech stocks due to the development of artificial intelligence was also a factor in revitalizing the market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is one of the 3 major indexes in the U.S. stock market, consisting of 30 blue-chip stocks representing major U.S. industries. The weighted average of stocks is calculated based on stock prices rather than market capitalization. 이승재, Arirang News.
Russia's Vladimir Putin and China's Xi Jinping have reunited for their 43rd meeting, this time in China. They issued a joint statement backing North Korea that they're against U.S. military intimidation toward the regime. Shin Se-byuk has the details.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin have expressed their opposition to military intimidation by the United States and its allies towards North Korea. The statement came after their summit meeting in Beijing, where the 2 leaders signed a joint statement on Thursday. Putin's visit to Beijing marks his first foreign trip since beginning his 5th term last week and highlights the growing importance of China-Russia relations. This is the 4th meeting between the 2 leaders since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. In the joint statement, Xi and Putin condemned the military threats and confrontations by the U.S. and its allies, which they said heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula. They urged the U.S. to de-escalate military tensions and abandon the use of sanctions. The 2 leaders also agreed to deepen military trust and cooperation, expand joint exercises, and regularly conduct combined sea and air patrols to strengthen military collaboration. Later that day, the 2 heads of state held a restrictive meeting for an in-depth discussion on strategic issues of common concern, particularly regarding the ongoing war in Ukraine. President Xi emphasized the need for a new security framework in relation to the Ukraine war and reiterated Beijing's commitment to a political settlement of the crisis. He also expressed support for an international peace conference at an appropriate time. Regarding the recent Putin-Xi summit, the U.S. criticized China's stance, saying Beijing, quote, cannot have its cake and eat it too when it comes to its relationship with Russia.
You can't want to have good, further, stronger, deepened relationships with Europe and other countries while simultaneously continuing to fuel the biggest threat to European security in a long time.
The White House also brushed off Moscow and Beijing's reaffirmation of ties. In a briefing on Thursday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that the Biden administration doesn't see anything new in the joint statement. The summit between the Chinese and Russian leaders comes as Moscow has become more dependent on Beijing. With China refusing to condemn the war in Ukraine and with increasing sanctions from the United States and its allies on Russia, deepening cooperation between the 2 historic powerhouses means relations with the U.S. are likely to become even more tense. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Washington says Russia has used more than 40 North Korean ballistic missiles imported from the regime in its war in Ukraine. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Thursday also stressed that Russia's use of North Korean ballistic missiles is in direct violation of UN Security Council resolutions. He added that Washington will take all appropriate steps to combat the destabilizing partnership between Moscow and Pyongyang, while urging the international community to do the same. Meanwhile, in response to the Washington's allegation, the regime's leader Kim Jong-un's younger sister Kim Yo-jong called it nonsense. She explained that the technologies of the weapon system the regime recently developed and updated cannot be made public and hence cannot be exported. She added that North has no intention of exporting any military technology anywhere. South Korea's economy is right on track for recovery, according to a think tank based in South Korea. Now, it's the first time such a related local body has proposed a 2% range growth forecast. We turn to Professor Shin Se-don for more. Great to have you back, Professor Shin.
Good morning.
So, first off, South Korea's economy is believed to expand by 2.6% this year. Strong global demand for chips will be the main driver for that projected growth. The question is, will exports of chips lead the country's growth for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, for the first 4 months, semiconductor exports has been growing about 10%, the 20%. And definitely is going to lead, Korean economic growth. The problem is the semiconductor exports is about a little less than 20% of our total exports. And the problem is, what about the other 80% of exports, including steels, including automobile? And there's a pretty much a sign that, export in the automobile and export in the steel, it is kind of a little stagnating. So even though semiconductor exports are increasing very rapidly for the first 4 months, you have to see what's going to happen on the exports of the automobile, steel, and the chemical products. So it is not pretty definite, whether the export growth will be continuing in the second half of this year.
Professor Shin, that's also in line with the possibility that growth centered on exports may weaken with global trade shrinking because of U.S. protectionism that could possibly deepen after the November U.S. presidential election. Is this a possible scenario? What's your take on this?
Well, whether U.S. presidential election will affect Korean trades, well, I doubt it. But whether, the protection of the United States against the Chinese exports, I think that's going to have a secondary effect on Korean export in the sense that, if protectionism by the United States affects Chinese exports, then many of the Korean companies are exporting to, China for their exports. So it would have a secondary effect on Korean export. But overall, I think it would not be as significant as, most people will believe.
Well, concerns do linger, though, over sluggish consumption that we have to talk about as consumer prices remain pretty high here in the country. It's also forecasting, the KDI report is forecasting that consumer prices will go up 2.6% this year. Is this a good sign?
Well, yeah, consumption price meaning staying below 3%, that will be a good sign. But for the last couple of years, real Korean economic problem is sluggish consumption or domestic demand. And actually, for the first quarter, the domestic demand has negative growth, negative contribution to Korean economy. So real problem in Korean economy right now, export doing very fine. But the problem is consumption is very sluggish. And there are many reasons, private consumption is sluggish in Korea because of high interest rate payment, and sluggish, housing prices. But the economy is not doing pretty good other than the export side. So real key for Korean economic, growth is whether consumption will pick up in the second half. And that, I think, is critically depending upon the future course of interest rates.
Definitely. Well, the report also added that it believes that no additional pump priming steps are needed at the moment. And, some people are saying that such comments targeted the main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung's pledge to provide cash handouts to everyone here in the country. Now, Professor Shin, do you as an expert argue that there's no need for those additional pump priming steps?
Right. We know that this year economic growth will be about 6% according to KDI, about 2.5% for another institution. So it is definitely true that Korean economic growth will be higher than 2%. And if you have to pay, $250,000 to everybody, that has to be paid last year, in which economic growth was 1.4%. So I think when economy is growing over 2%, it is, I think, premature, for the government or for the political party to argue that we have to give, 250,000 for everybody. I think it's almost nonsense.
All right, Professor Shin, before I let you go briefly, the KDI projects the Korean economy will grow 2.1% next year in 2025. Now, that's lower than what we were expecting this year, which is at 2.6. Why a lower growth outlook then?
Yeah, 100%. That is because KDI is projecting the export growth in next year, 2025, will be about 2.4%, which, in this year, they predicted that it's going to be 5.6%. So the main difference in economic growth rate this year, which is 2.6, and 2.1 next year, I think that is due to about half the rate of growth in export from 5.6% to 2.4%.
All right, we still have a full half of the year left for the 2024, so we'll see how that goes. And thank you, Professor Shin, so much for your time and your analysis this morning. You have a wonderful day.
Always my pleasure.
To raise awareness of South Korean abductees being held in North Korea, the Ministry of Unification has revealed a special garden to remember them. Our North Korean Affairs correspondent Kim Jung-sil takes us there.
This year's Seoul International Garden Show opened on Thursday, where visitors can enjoy beautiful flowers and greenery along the Hangang River. On the corner of the extensive garden this year, there's a very special greenhouse dedicated to abductees who are being held in North Korea. The Garden of 3 Forget-Me-Not Blossoms was designed and created by artist Hangang to remember those who still haven't come home.
The Unification Ministry hopes opening up this glass greenhouse garden filled with these Forget-Me-Not sculptures dedicated to South Korean abductees taken to the north will help raise awareness to remember them.
The Ministry of Unification acknowledges over 160,000 people were taken to the north and didn't make it home. They were taken during and after the Korean War in the form of abductees, detainees, and prisoners of war who were not repatriated. The 3 Forget-Me-Nots each represent those groups.
We organized this garden to publicize the issue of abductees in the country. Together with the families of the victims, we want to bring this issue to the attention of the South Korean people, as well as the international community, so that everyone can know about this and call for the immediate return of the abductees from North Korea.
The families of the abductees also gathered at the garden. They include Mr. Choi, whose father was working on a fishing boat when he was taken to the north in 1967.
We are thankful that the government is taking great care in the issue of abductees, and that many endeavors are being made to raise international awareness. We don't ask North Korea for much. We just want to know if our family members are still alive or not.
The garden with the Forget-Me-Nots will be displayed until October as a reminder of those still separated and to urge continued efforts for their safe return. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in Bahrain, where the 33rd Arab Summit kicked off on Thursday in the country's capital, Manama. The 22-member bloc issued a declaration calling for the presence of international protection and peacekeeping forces of the United Nations in the occupied Palestinian territories until the implementation of a two-state solution. The statement called for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip while blaming Israel's obstruction for failed negotiations. It also condemned Israel's aggression against the Palestinian city of Rafah, saying that it ignored international warnings of the disastrous humanitarian consequences. The declaration also called for all Palestinian factions to join the umbrella of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the political rivals of the Hamas. The summit was chaired by Bahrain's king, Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, while delegates from the Arab world, including Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, as well as the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, took part in the conference. Guterres said that any assault on Rafah is unacceptable and that the two-state solution is the only permanent way for peace. Moving over to the Gaza Strip, the United States military has completed the installation of an anchored floating pier to boost the delivery of aid into the region. On Thursday morning, Vice Admiral Brad Cooper of U.S. Central Command said that the pier was successfully affixed and in the coming days will commence the delivery of aid. For more than a week, no food supplies have entered the two main border crossings in southern Gaza. U.S. President Joe Biden had announced the plan for the pier in March, while the UN stressed that land delivery of aid was the most viable, effective and efficient method. An autopsy report on the Massachusetts teen who died after participating in a spicy tortilla chip challenge on social media said he died from ingesting a large quantity of chili pepper extract. 14-year-old Harris Wallaber died in September last year after eating the Paki chip as part of the manufacturer's One Chip Challenge, popular on social media. According to the autopsy report, Harris died of cardiopulmonary arrest from eating a food substance with high capsaicin concentration. The teenager also had a congenital heart defect. Moving to the final story of the week. A 90-year-old female sprinter from Italy claimed another world record in her age group by running 200 meters outdoors in 51.47 seconds. Emma Maria Mazenga, who was born in 1933, holds 5 world records, 9 European records, and 28 Best Italian performances across masters sprinting categories. She beat the previous record of 53.35 seconds held by Japan's Emiko Saito earlier this month. Mazenga said she likes to have a beer with her fellow runners, although not many are left in her age group. She lightheartedly said, "If I have no competitors, I know that I'll win from the start, so I aim to do a good time." She also said that the sport prevented loneliness and had helped her through some difficult times.
Good morning. It was breezy, but such a refreshing day we had yesterday under blue skies. Today looks to be a repeat of yesterday, but there will be a rise in temperatures. So the temperature roller coaster continues with big gaps between lows and highs. Now the entire country will notice a jump in highs today under lots of sunshine. Seoul will see highs going nearly 5 degrees higher this afternoon. Meanwhile, Gyeongsangdo provinces and nearby areas will have summer-like warmth this afternoon. So Daegu tops out at 28 degrees, Gyeongju at 29 degrees Celsius. Strong UV rays will shine down on you, so have your sunglasses and a hat ready to protect yourself from bright sunlight. Air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day today. The weekend looks to be a promising one, and Sunday looks to be even more summer-like with an expected high of 28 degrees here in the capital. Then gorgeous sunny weather will take us through next week, and the mornings will get warmer as well. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next Monday at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
Completely new. But something anyone can relate with. Flawlessly made. And tears that go with it. K-drama. Korea is coming at you with another story to tell. Welcome.
시간 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? Welcome. 시간 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
We're here to bring a new type of news show. New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, May 17th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and thank you for joining us on News Generation. Today, we're joined by Choi Ji-hee. Happy Friday. Happy Friday! And Brooke Prince.
Hello, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Now, as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online over the past 24 hours. The price of Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency, hit over $66,000 on Thursday, marking the first time the cryptocurrency has reached this level since April 24th. Analysts attribute the surge to increased optimism in financial markets following the release of the U.S. Consumer Price Index, which showed that inflation slowed down last month. Now to the latest on the murder of a Korean man whose body was found inside a plastic barrel in a reservoir in Pattaya, Thailand. Thai media have identified the three suspects, releasing their names and the passport photos of two of them, along with surveillance camera images. Two suspects have been arrested, but one still remains at large. According to the Bangkok Post, one of the arrested suspects admitted to beating and strangling the victim to death during an attempted robbery. Now finally, back here in Korea, anticipation and buzzing about the British choreographer Matthew Bourne's adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. Now Bourne's take unfolds within the Verona Institute, which is a unique blend of a boarding school and asylum catering to troubled youths. Now Romeo, a rebellious newcomer, and Juliet, facing sexual abuse from Tybalt, a guard, find solace and connection through dance. Now, their story delves into themes of violence, mental health, and sexuality. Now, with other classic works like The Little Mermaid and Snow White also undergoing or having gone reinterpretations, some are calling this really innovative, while others are voicing concerns about the originals losing their essence. So, here in the studio, Brooke, I know that you are an artist yourself. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, from an actor's standpoint, I think it's exciting for any actor to dig their teeth into something related to
Shakespeare. It's really exciting.
Exactly. It's Romeo and Juliet. It's a classic. So
right.
even though it's a modern twist on a classic, it's still something really exciting for an actor to get to do. So I think it's fun to get to do a new interpretation. And I think as long as it sticks to the main ideas of the original, it shouldn't be too controversial, especially when you consider the fact that unlike Snow White and The Little Mermaid, like you mentioned, those are more geared towards children.
Right,
but
right.
Romeo and Juliet has always been a more mature story.
Right.
It's always had darker themes. So I think that's fine, and I think it will be very popular, especially when you look back on the big blockbuster hits of the past few years, like Squid Game and The Glory. Audiences really tend to like these more intense themes, so I'm all for it.
Right, and I think that these intense themes, and especially the ones that Romeo and Juliet, Matthew Bourne's production touches upon, is really relatable to us, especially the younger generation, which is why I also think that this production will become popular among more people as it unfolds. Now, Ji-hee, what do you think about this production or reinterpretation?
Well, I totally agree that these new interpretations of the classics are quite innovative. I think we've already been quite accustomed to the classics and classic plays, and the stories, and I think adding something new to them, like a twist, is very refreshing and exciting as well. And I believe that's what art is all about.
Right. Exploring,
experimenting, trying new things out, and really adding your own creativity to what already exists.
So do you guys both have, do you guys plan to watch Romeo and Juliet, this version? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I want to try watching it.
I would love to see it. I'm a little busy this weekend, but I would love to see it.
But it's actually until May 19th, so maybe.
Maybe until then.
All right, that was our news feed for this Friday. So now we're going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Now we're halfway through May, which is often called Family Month here in Korea. Now this month includes several family-related days, which we talked on NewsGen, such as Children's Day, Parents' Day, and we also have Married Couples Day coming up next week. But have you ever thought about this most basic question? What does it mean to be a family? Well, let's start by taking a look at the screen. Traditionally, a family has been defined as a group of people united by ties of marriage, blood, or adoption, typically consisting of one or two parents and their children, or a group of people all related to each other. In the past, family referred to those connected by blood or legal bonds like marriage. However, today we are seeing new non-traditional forms of family emerging, with many calling for a broader definition of family. So today we're going to explore what it means to be a family in light of Family Month. And what really intrigued us on NewsGen to ask this question and prepare this topic was the news about the first lesbian couple in Korea to give birth. So to talk a bit more about their story, they welcomed their daughter last year. But what got even more attention was an interview they did with domestic news outlets. So Brooke, tell us more about their story, what they shared through these interviews.
That's right. And I actually wore this rainbow sweater today in support of the idea that love is love, and I'd like to extend my congratulations to the happy couple.
That's so thoughtful.
We're going to be talking about Kim Hyo-jin and Kim Se-yeon, and they did make headlines as the first Korean same-sex couple to bring a child into their family, and to do so very bravely, openly, and publicly. And they said in an interview that when it comes to their definition of family, it's not so much about the biological component. It's about the love that they share between them. And I think that this idea of family really challenges what Korean society has thought of as family for many years. And I think that their story has started and inspired a lot of conversations like the one we're having today, and that really need to happen.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a very good point. I think their story kind of raised this question about Korea's definition of family, because as you mentioned, Korea traditionally defines family as mostly being focused on blood, being tied by blood, but now these people are not, but they are actually bounded as a family. They call themselves a family. Now, although this couple had a wedding and they welcomed their child last year, what's kind of interesting is that they are not recognized as a family by Korean law. So Ji-hee, why is it?
That's right. Well, so this couple got married in New York back in 2019, and they became pregnant after receiving a sperm donation from a fertility clinic in Belgium. So obviously they're not within our country, Korea. So despite giving birth in August last year, the couple is not legally recognized here in the country, where gay marriage is not allowed yet, and sperm donation is only provided to legal or common law heterosexual couples. So this really highlights the need for legal recognition and support for the diverse family structures that we're starting to see a lot more here in Korea.
Right, it's definitely like shed the light on the need for Korea to redefine or expand its definition of family. And as Ji-hee just mentioned, Korean law only recognizes family is formed by marriage, childbirth, and also adoption. Now, we've been talking about this, but this has faced criticism for being outdated and somewhat discriminatory against cohabiting couples, foster families, and common law marriages. So I want to ask you, is our generation still holding on to this so-called traditional concept of family, or are we kind of, did we bring up a new definition of what it means to be a family?
No, we're definitely seeing a new definition and an expanding understanding of what a family is. So it's quite fascinating to see how this perception of family is evolving among especially the millennials and Gen Zs. So if we take a look at the screen to find out a little bit more, according to a recent survey, 7 out of 10 individuals belonging to this particular generation believe that it's not necessary to be legally married or related by blood to be considered family. So this shift in perspective is quite significant because as you said earlier, Eugene, especially in a society like Korea, we've traditionally placed great importance on marriage, and blood ties in defining family. However, that perception is definitely changing. And there was also recently the proposed Domestic Partnership Act, which aims to legally recognize domestic partners or people living together in one home or under the same roof who are not related by marriage or blood. And this definitely reflects this evolving social perception. But unfortunately, the law has faced opposition, particularly from the religious community, who argue that it's promoting the legalization of homosexuality. So as a result, the enactment of this particular law is still pending. But I think it's really important to acknowledge and understand the diversities that we're seeing in terms of family structure.
Right, so this act is definitely a start of meaningful change, but as you mentioned, it has been proposed, it's still pending, but I heard that in other parts of the world, this domestic partnership acts or similar acts are have already taken effect. So Brooke, what's it like in the United States?
Well, I would say in general, the U.S. has more progressive laws than there are in Korea. There is more tolerance and more acceptance of different kinds of families. But of course, that does not mean that discrimination never happens. It is still a problem in the U.S. and in many places around the world, unfortunately. However, it is definitely much easier in the U.S. to get married as a same-sex couple. Since 2015, the Supreme Court ruled that all states must allow and legally recognize same-sex marriages. Ever since 2014, the U.S. Census Bureau started counting same-sex marriages as a part of family households. So it's really only been in the last 10 years or so that same-sex couples have been able to gain those rights, and I hope that Korea can catch up to that as well. In terms of other acts and laws related to life partners, cohabiting partners, things like that, we do also have common law marriages. Not in every state, but in certain states, if you meet certain requirements, then you can be considered legally married, even if you don't go through the actual marriage process. So that's sort of what it looks like in the United States.
Right. So here in the studio, going back to the stats that Ji presented, we saw that 7 out of 10 millennials and Gen Zs actually define family quite differently from the traditional definition here in Korea. So I want to ask you, Ji, first of all, how do you define family and who do you count as being part of your family?
Well, other than my parents, my siblings, and my dog, of course, who I consider as my younger sister. They're not the only ones that are part of my family, but I also consider my close relatives, like my uncle, who I'm really close to, as my close family as well. And here in Korea, there's a saying that a good neighbor is better than a distant cousin.
Oh, right.
Heard of it.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with that saying. And in that regard, our family has been close with another family for 30 years. We grew up together, basically. Our dads were friends back in their 20s, and they got married, and the mothers got close. They became friends, and they gave birth in the same year, and their son and I became friends.
That's such a special relationship.
It is. And the siblings got together as well. They became friends, and we used to travel together every weekend. And recently, my friend got married. And his parents would say, we're not just close friends, but we're also family and cousin, which was it was really sweet. It was really touching. So I think like this, the quality time spent together, the understanding you have, mutual understanding you have about the circumstances of each other, and the trust and respect is more important than being blood related when it comes to defining a family, I think.
Right, I definitely think that sharing these values and memories are really bonds us as a family nowadays. Now, what about you, Brooke?
Well, similar to G, I also had family friends growing up, and the funny thing is that we all actually thought that they were our cousins. Growing up, it took us many years to figure out that we weren't actually blood related.
Shows how close you guys were.
We were. We really thought we were family, and we still think of them as family. They still come to all of our weddings and family events and things like that. So I agree. I think much like the couple talking talked about at the beginning of the show in the interview, how it's not all about blood relation, it's about the love that you share. I think that's the way I define family. I also go by the saying, friends are your chosen family.
Right, like a brother from another mother.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, my best friend, I consider her like a sister to me.
Yeah, me too.
The spouses that have married into my family, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, all of those people I consider now my family. So I think your definition, it differs depending on the person, but it's all in the heart, right? And so it's about what you feel. And I think that the law just needs to catch up to that. And what you feel, it's unfortunate that at this point it's not recognized by the law, but I have hope that one day it will be.
Well, just hearing your answers, I kind of asked myself while listening to your answers, how do I define family? So I also think that my parents and my dog and my closest friends are actually part of my family. So I think that we kind of have this consensus among us here in the studio who are part of millennials and Gen Zs that family is so much broader. The definition of family is so much broader than in the past. It's not just about being blood related. So for more comments and opinions, we also asked our viewers what they think brings people together as a family. And here's what 3 of them had to say. So if you look at the comments, Leon says what makes a family is the love, commitment, and support that members offer each other. Blood ties can be a factor, but strong emotional bonds are what truly define a family. Tasmia says, I believe compassion, empathy, and kindness can make anyone a part of the family. It has nothing to do with blood ties at all. That's why my parents have family friends, like Jihi, friends who are like family without any blood relations. Benny says, I think of cohabitation ideally because of rising inflation and even living costs. And this one can be an interesting fact for me when thinking of becoming a family. So by looking at the comments that our viewers gave, they definitely have a much more inclusive definition of family when compared to the traditional definition of family that we had in our society. So to delve even deeper into how millennials and Gen Zs perceive the concept of family, I actually went to a bustling college district in Seoul to listen to young people's thoughts. So let's dive right in.
My parents, younger brother, and my dog. My dog is part of my family because we live together and share happy moments. Our dog brings us so much joy that it feels inseparable from our family.
My parents and older sister.
My parents, older sister, grandparents, and my relatives. If I have a girlfriend and we're really close, I think she'd be part of my family too.
My immediate family members and relatives.
Parents, both mom and dad, and also my older siblings. And recently in November, we had a little cat. We found a cat in a street, so we decided to keep, to give the warmth, to give the love.
I also recognize my parents and my sister, also including my aunts and uncles as my family.
I'm an only child, so it's just my parents and me.
Even if you're not blood related, if you feel like someone has become your family, then they are.
My family is full of energy, so I think anyone who can share and enjoy this energy with us can become part of our family.
Trust. I think if I can trust someone completely and give everything to them unconditionally, then they're family.
Maybe you are living with your friend, and that might be like closer for you than your family. So maybe you might consider your friend as your family. And as this is like global like society now, and many things are changing, and maybe the concept of family is definitely like broader than before.
Right now, I'm in Korea as an exchange student, and my friends is basically like my family. Well, I think it's given the attention to them, given the love, given the safe places. It's can be anyone and anywhere.
I think being a family means protecting each other, like a fence.
Even if the family structure is different, the love is the same. I think they are definitely a family.
If 2 people consider themselves a family, then they are. That's what matters.
In my country, we do still have this problem because we didn't accept like a gay couple, and especially gay couple with their child. But why not if they love each other and they care to these children?
So a lot of fresh, valuable insights from all our interviewees. So from what we've seen in the VCR, it seems like millennials and Gen Zs are embracing a more inclusive and modern idea of family. What really came into my mind was if you like share the emotions such as trust and love, and if you have all these memories together, I think most of the younger generation think that they've become a family. So what do you think are some of the reasons why our generation is having this kind of shift in the definition of family?
Well, first of all, it was really heartwarming to watch these street interviews.
It was so cute.
Yeah, very cute, and I agree with many of them. And back to your questions, I believe it's really natural that we're seeing these changes with the change in times as well. So marriage and giving birth are no longer seen as essential right now. And in the past, the traditional norm was for men to earn money while women took care of the home, supporting the family. However, this perception is definitely fading away as dual income has become a necessity as well. So as a result, these various forms of families are emerging, and people are being more accepting towards these new forms as well.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a really good point, because throughout our discussion today, we talked about like multi-person families, but actually single-person households are actually becoming a new form of family as well. So definitely that's another change. Now, what are your thoughts, Brooke?
Well, I also just wanted to give some praise to the street interviews. I really related to Choi So-min, the girl talking about her dog.
Oh, yeah, me too.
My cat is also like my child.
I know.
I loved that idea of bringing so much positive energy to a home. And also the foreigner that was talking about how when you're here by yourself and you don't have your blood-related family. Your friends, your coworkers, everyone becomes your family members. So all of that was really touching and heartwarming to me, and also very encouraging to see how many people were so supportive of this loving couple bringing a child into their family. And I think all of that, seeing those interviews, shows us that there are changes happening to our society. And I think that's natural as time goes on. I mean, my parents got married at 19, which is crazy for me to think about. But in their generation, that was the norm. Whereas in our generation, it's more likely that people will wait to get married, whether that's because they want to focus on their career, or maybe they have to because of the economy. Maybe they want to save up more money before they have kids, or maybe just their ideas of a traditional household are changing. I used to think you have to get married and then have kids in that order, but maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe I could be a single parent. Maybe I could adopt. Nothing is wrong with the way you choose to live your life and the way you choose to build your own family.
Right. At the end of the day, it's your choice, and we're all family, right? And last but not least, do you guys expect some changes that will be made to the Korean society in terms of how it recognizes family?
Yeah, although it may take some time, I think we will definitely see some changes, because we're seeing a lot of these exceptional yet scenario or cases that are becoming a lot more common these days, like the lesbian couple. And I really want a legal foundation to support this change as well, because it's quite unfortunate to sometimes see some of my gay friends leaving the country because they want to be accepted as a married couple outside of the country. And it'll be nice if we are more accepting legally as well to accept these changes.
And I think that the domestic partnership act that you mentioned, if it passes, that will also make a very big change to our society. Anything you'd like to add fastly, Brooke?
Yeah, well, I think having these kinds of conversations is a great start.
Of course.
I've lived in Korea for almost 8 years now. I love it here, but one thing I would really like to see change is for it to become more tolerant so that everyone can feel comfortable and free to live here without judgment.
Hope we could see those changes happening fast here in Korea and around the world. And that's all we have for today, but NewsGen is here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks today to Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
And Brooke Fritz.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great weekend. We are News Generation. Yay!